level. So another indicator is the relationship duration. That is the length between the first purchase and the day of today. And that is, you take the time between the first purchase, where the customer bought the first time, and the time today. You want to know how much time the customer has been staying in the database. To measure that, there are two different contexts. The easy context is always the share context, which is the context of grocery retail. And in this context, you don't really know when the customer comes into the database, unless you have a loyalty program. But even if the customer takes the loyalty card, you don't really know if the customer has bought before. And this is probably the case. And because you start buying in a supermarket and you probably take the loyalty card only after a couple of purchases. And this is what you can see here, always a share, different buyers, and we don't know when they bought the first time. So the easy way is to consider the first purchase is the day when the customer takes the loyalty card in the loyalty program. In electronic commerce, it's easy because there, the day when the customer creates the account and buys the first time, this is considered as the first purchase. After the first purchase, you look at the different time frames and you can measure whenever the customer rebuys, you know that the customer is still active. But you have some customers, so this is the case of this customer. He bought regularly, and today you don't know if he still continue to buy tomorrow. You have the customer 4. He bought in the beginning, but it's a while he did not buy. So you don't know what happened with this customer. Either he defected, either he is only inactive, so he's not buying because he buys perhaps in another supermarket. Either he has moved to another city, I don't know. Either he really died. We never know. So it is difficult to understand what happens after this time. So there's a question mark. It means so the only way to know the only way to operationalize loyalty indicators is to use probabilities. This means that you have to, based on past purchase behaviors, you try to predict future purchase behaviors. Through, for example, regression models. There's another model called survival analysis. It's also kind of regression model. And it calculates based on past indicators, past purchase behaviors, the future. So for example, this customer has probably a high score, a score between 1 and 100% retention probability. This customer has probably a very low probability of retention. So based on the past behavior, we predict future purchase behavior. But you can be sure these are only probabilities. So probabilities are not necessarily the reality. So this means that we base our decision making on probabilities, as we do a lot in management, because we are confronted to a lot of uncertainty scenarios in all contexts. We use statistics to predict the retention probability. The other context is the loss for good context, contractual relationship based on contracts or subscriptions, such as Netflix or a mobile phone or internet offer, where we subscribe into a service for a given time. If we take the example of a mobile phone, we engage or we subscribe, for example, the 1st January for 2 years. So let's say the customer takes a contract for 2 years, so we know when he subscribed, subscribed via 1, and we know exactly when he probably charts, that is the defects. So we know we can easily calculate the probable relationship duration for this customer, as we know the first date of purchase and as we know the probably last date of the purchase. We have different customers, as you can see here, who have taken different subscription dates. That this one comes in here and he goes out here. This one comes in here and goes out here. So we know exactly the first date of purchase and we know exactly the last date of purchase. Whereas here we know only the first date of purchase, or which is considered the date where the customer takes the loyalty program in the real world, or which is really the first purchase when the customer creates an account on an e-commerce. But we don't know what happens after the day we consider his situation. It's called always a share. Why always a share? Because customers, as I said, this customer might reappear. Take the example of your French students here. Next year, you will go abroad to a partner university. So you won't buy for a while. So you would be this type of customer. And after 1 year, you might come back, lose, and reappear and repurchase in the store because you finished your abroad period. This is typical situation. So you have always a share. You're not going away definitively if you leave next year. You never know. This is the case of grocery retail. You don't know if the customer comes back or not. That is why it's called always a share, because he might come back, reappear at a given moment. Whereas here, it's lost for good. It's a contract. Generally, customers switch away to another provider because it is more advantageous to change to other provider to get a free mobile phone. Because actually the acquisition methods are very aggressive from mobile phone providers, and they offer free tablets or free mobile phones. And that is why it's more attractive to not to be loyal than to stay loyal. Just one last point. This period here is called right-centered data because censored means that we don't know. There are some statistical models are based on right-centered or censored data, which takes into account uncertainties, are probability models that model this lifetime. And it is important to have this in mind, because of this relationship duration is taken into account to calculate customer lifetime. Until now, I would like that you understand there are different relationship types, lost for good versus always a share. I would like that you understand the differences of always a share customers. These are markets without contracts, and so such as grocery retail, most purchases we are doing. And the relationship duration can be only measured with probabilities because we don't know after a given date if a customer is still active. Various lost for good customers are contractual markets, subscription markets, where we can quite easily predict the relationship length because we know the first date of purchase and we know the last date of purchase.